She whispered it softly, her breath warm against my ear, the words rolling out like silk on glass.
Do you want to bite me?
For a second, I didn't even register what she said. The room was full of laughter, half-empty wine glasses, and the smell of something sweet burning in the oven. She leaned closer, her eyes steady on mine, waiting. And that was the moment I realized everything in my life had gone completely wrong. Her name was Claire. My wife introduced us 2 months earlier, calling her a colleague from marketing who just needs some friendly faces. I didn't think twice about it. I trusted my wife. She was confident, social, the kind of woman who always needed people around her like planets orbiting the same sun. I used to think that was charm. Later, I understood it was strategy. The first time I noticed something off, we were at dinner, the three of us. My wife laughed at everything Claire said. When I spoke, she scrolled through her phone, smiling at messages she didn't show me. At one point she said, "Claire's single, you know. You should help her get out more." I thought she was joking. I laughed. She didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something about the way she said it, so casual, so deliberate, made my stomach twist. I told myself I was paranoid, that marriage can't survive without trust, but trust without truth is just blindness with good manners. Over the next few weeks, Claire started appearing everywhere we went. Movie nights became the three of us. My wife would say she was tired and go to bed early, leaving me and Claire with half a bottle of wine and the awkward silence of strangers pretending not to notice what was happening. Then came that night. It was late, the house lit only by a single lamp. My wife had gone to bed after another fight, small, stupid things about how I never understand her anymore. Claire stayed to help clean up. I told her she didn't have to. She smiled, said she wanted to. I turned around to grab another plate, and that's when she whispered it. "Do you want to bite me?" The words froze the air. I looked at her and for the first time saw the trap my wife had been building. Claire wasn't a temptation. She was a test. My wife's way of proving that all men are weak, that her guilt could be justified because I would eventually fall too. I stepped back, shaking my head. Claire's face softened, maybe realizing she'd gone too far. She said quietly, "She told me you'd say no, but she needed to see it." I didn't answer. I walked to the bedroom door. My wife was awake, lying on her side, eyes open in the dark. "Did she try?" she asked. No anger, no surprise, just curiosity, like she was checking the results of an experiment. "Why?" I said. She didn't move. She said, "Because I can't stand being the only one who's guilty." I stood there looking at the woman I'd built my life around, the woman who smiled at every stranger, who defended every lie with tears that looked real. And all I could think was how quiet the house felt. Not peaceful, not safe, just empty. I didn't say anything more that night. I slept on the couch and woke to a silence so heavy it felt deliberate. In the morning she made coffee, asked if I was going to work like nothing happened. I stared at her for a long time, then said, "You don't get to balance sin by sharing it." She laughed, a small broken sound, and said, "Then you'll never understand marriage." That was when I knew it was over, even if I hadn't said the words yet. I left the mug untouched and walked out the door, the air cold and clear. I remember thinking that betrayal doesn't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes it just sits there in the kitchen pretending to pour coffee while you realize that love turned into something else when you weren't looking. I didn't go back that night. I drove with no destination, the road humming under the tires, her voice replaying in my head, that whisper from someone else's mouth that carried her fingerprints. "Do you want to bite me?" That was the sound of a marriage dying, not from anger, but from design. I understood then that my wife didn't lose faith in me. She destroyed it on purpose to feel less alone in her own guilt. And once you see that kind of truth, there's no unseeing it. If you've ever had someone you love turn your trust into proof against you, you know that silence is louder than any confession. That night, I finally stopped defending her. I finally stopped defending us. The next morning, I sat in my car for nearly an hour, engine running, watching the frost melt on the windshield. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't go home. My phone buzzed twice. Both messages were from my wife. The first said, "You left the door unlocked." The second, "We should talk." I didn't reply. There's a strange peace in ignoring someone who's used your words as weapons. I drove aimlessly, ended up in front of my office, but couldn't bring myself to go in. My reflection in the glass looked older, smaller somehow. Betrayal ages you, even before you realize it. I bought a coffee, walked the block twice, and finally decided to face her. When I came back home, she was sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded like she was preparing for a negotiation. The air smelled of fresh bread. I think she did it on purpose. Familiar scents make you weaker. You didn't answer, she said. I needed time, I replied. To think. About what? Her tone was flat, almost rehearsed. About why you did it, I said. About what kind of person sets a trap for their own husband. She looked down, twisting her ring. You think I wanted this? You planned it, I said quietly. That's worse than wanting it. She flinched but didn't deny it. I just needed to know if I was the only one, she whispered. The only one what? Who made a mistake? She looked up then, her eyes wet but steady. It wasn't supposed to happen. The affair. It just happened. And I hated myself for it. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept waiting for you to find out, to yell, to leave, but you never did. You just kept being kind. And the guilt? It was too much. I needed you to fall, too, to even it out. The honesty in her voice was somehow worse than denial. I felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just exhaustion. So, Claire, she was, what, your confession? She was supposed to prove something, she murmured. If you said yes, I'd know we were both broken. If you said no, maybe I'd believe you really loved me. And now? I asked. She didn't answer. The silence between us stretched thin, sharp enough to cut through years of history. I walked to the window, looked out at the street. A delivery truck passed. Children shouted somewhere in the distance. The world kept turning. Who was he? I asked finally. Someone from work, she said. It's over now. You sound sure of that? He moved away. That's not what I meant. She closed her eyes. It's over because I saw what I became. I laughed once, a dry, humorless sound. You think realizing it makes it better? No, she said softly. But maybe it's a start. For a moment, I almost believed her. She looked small, fragile, human. But then I remembered Claire's whisper, the calculated cruelty of the setup, and the pity vanished. Do you know what I do when people lie to me? I gather evidence. She frowned. What are you talking about? I pulled a small flash drive from my pocket and placed it on the table. You think you're the only one who can test people? Her face went pale. What's that? A copy of your emails, your calls, your transactions. You covered your tracks well, but not well enough. You used my account for your trips. You forgot my firm tracks every payment for fraud detection. She swallowed hard. You went through my private messages? I went through our marriage. I just followed the data trail. She reached for the flash drive, but I stopped her hand midway. It's already backed up. 3 times. For a moment, we just sat there. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger, and maybe she was. The man who believed in her was gone. The man sitting across from her now was someone else. What are you going to do with it? I said, nothing. Not yet. Then why tell me? Because I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to know what it's like to live with something hanging over your head, waiting for the moment it destroys you. Her eyes filled with tears. You're cruel. I said, you built cruelty into this marriage. I'm just following the blueprints. I stood up, walked to the door, but stopped before leaving. Don't call Claire, I said without turning. She's not your friend anymore. You talked to her? She came to me, I said. She told me everything. I left her there, sitting at that table, staring at the flash drive like it was a live grenade. I didn't go far. I stayed in a motel near the river, a small place that smelled of disinfectant and rain. For the first time in years, I slept without a setting an alarm. When I woke, the light was gray and soft through the curtains. My phone was full of missed calls. I ignored them all. I spent the next few days working remotely, pretending my life was intact. But at night, when everything was quiet, I thought about that moment, her whisper, my wife's cold eyes, and the feeling that everything I'd built had been quietly hollowed out from the inside. People talk about betrayal like it's a sudden thing, like one sharp event. But the truth is slower. It's the drip of doubt, the slow erosion of trust until one day you realize there's nothing left but noise. I didn't plan revenge then. I just wanted distance. But distance has a way of turning into clarity, and clarity into something colder. 3 weeks passed before she showed up at my office. She looked different, tired, pale, the shine gone from her hair, the same way guilt dulls a diamond. My assistant buzzed me, said my wife was here, and I almost told her to say I was in a meeting. But curiosity is a dangerous habit. It makes you open doors you already locked. She stepped in holding a folder, like she had come to negotiate, not apologize. You can't keep avoiding me, she said. I can, I replied, not looking up from my computer. I just haven't practiced enough. She set the folder on my desk. You copied my emails. You violated my privacy. You built your affair in my home, I said, finally looking at her. You violated my life. We all have our crimes. She pressed her lips together. I came to settle this before it goes too far. I leaned back. Too far? You mean before your reputation suffers? Before your mother finds out what kind of daughter she raised? Her eyes flickered with anger. This isn't you. You're not like this. You never knew me, I said. You only knew what you could manipulate. I could see her trembling. It wasn't fear, it was the loss of control. I loved you, she said quietly. You loved convenience, I replied, and when it got hard, you built a lie instead of a bridge. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Outside the glass walls of my office, people moved, phones rang. Life went on. Inside, it felt like time had stopped somewhere between accusation and regret. She finally opened the folder. Inside were papers, legal drafts, settlement proposals, all signed but one. This is my offer. You keep the house, the cars, and your company. I don't want your money. I just want this to end quietly. I studied her. The same woman who once said she wanted everything, now offering to disappear. It didn't make sense, which meant it wasn't honest. What's the catch? I asked. No catch, she said. I just can't keep fighting. I smiled, small and cold. You already lost. You just haven't accepted it yet. What do you want, revenge? She asked. Would that make you happy? Happiness has nothing to do with it. It's about truth. And you've been allergic to that since the day we met. Her hands shook slightly as she stood. I'll sign whatever you want. Just stop digging. I let her leave without replying. When the door closed, I opened my drawer and took out the flash drive. I had been debating whether to use it, to hand it over to my lawyer, to expose her, but something in me wanted her to sweat longer. The next night, I met with my attorney, a man named Pierce. Calm, precise, the kind of man who never asked for more than he needed to know. I gave him the drive. He plugged it in, skimmed through the evidence and whistled low. You've got her cornered. Every transaction, every message, GPS data from her trips. And this other stuff, her company's misuse of client funds, that's not just divorce leverage, that's criminal exposure. Can we keep it clean? I asked. No scandals, no headlines. I just want what's mine. Pierce nodded. We'll file quiet, but hard. She won't see it coming. I left his office feeling lighter, not proud, but steady. Sometimes justice isn't about noise. It's about precision. 2 days later, my wife called. Her voice was calm, too calm. You filed already? She said. Yes. You could have warned me. You could have warned me 3 years ago, when you decided to build a second life behind my back. She was silent, and for the first time I thought maybe she was crying. Then she said something that froze me. Your mother knew. My throat tightened. What? She knew about everything. About me? About the affair? She told me not to tell you, that it would destroy you. She thought she was protecting you. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My mother had always been the one person I thought was safe. She'd adored my wife, defended her even when I complained about small things. I thought it was kindness. It was cover. You're lying to me, I said, but my voice was weak. Ask her, she said, if you still can. Then she hung up. That night, I drove 3 hours to my mother's house. It was late when I arrived, the lights still on, her favorite radio station playing softly in the kitchen. She looked surprised to see me. You should have called. I needed to talk, I said. She smiled the way mothers do when they sense something's wrong but pretend it's not. Coffee? She asked. Did you know? I asked quietly. Her face changed. The air in the room turned heavy. Know what? She asked. Don't do that, I said. Don't play innocent. Did you know she was cheating on me? She hesitated for just a second, but that second was enough. I thought it was over, she said. She came to me once, crying. She said she'd made a mistake, that she didn't know how to tell you. I told her to end it, to fix it. I didn't think it would go this far. I felt dizzy. You lied to me, I said. You made me trust her. I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what? The truth? From pain. You were so happy. I didn't want to see you broken. I was already broken. You just helped her hide it. She started crying, but I couldn't stay. I left her standing there, calling my name, as I walked out into the night. That was the last time I saw her alive. A week later, she died suddenly, heart failure, the doctors said. I didn't go to the funeral. People said I should, that she was still my mother. But grief and betrayal make strange enemies. I told myself I'd forgive her one day, just not yet.
The day of the funeral was gray. The kind of gray that feels deliberate, like the world is matching your mood out of pity. I stayed home, sitting in the same armchair where my mother used to read when she visited. The flowers from the service were still sitting on my porch when the neighbors came by afterward, offering condolences. I thanked them, lied about being sick, and closed the door. Grief doesn't always come with tears. Sometimes it's just an echo in an empty room that never stops. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel sad. Just hollow. The truth about her and my wife was still burning somewhere behind my ribs, slow and steady, turning everything it touched into ash. My mother had spent her life preaching honesty, telling me secrets rot people from the inside. And yet she carried one for years, right under my nose. I kept imagining her knowing, smiling at my wedding, hugging my wife, defending her when I complained. Every time I replayed those moments, I felt more like a fool performing in a play everyone else already knew the ending to. That night I poured a drink, opened my laptop, and went through old messages, emails from my mother, photos, voicemails. The ordinary warmth of her voice hit me harder than I expected. In one message she said, "She loves you, you know. Don't ruin something good by doubting." I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. Doubt wasn't the problem, trust was. It was the weapon that both of them had used against me. Around midnight, I opened a folder from my lawyer again, the one labeled Final Settlement. I stared at the numbers, the property division, the signatures. My wife hadn't signed yet. Pierce said she was stalling, trying to find leverage. But what leverage did she think she had left? I still had the proof, the digital trail, and more importantly, I had nothing to lose anymore. That's when the idea started to form. Not revenge, not even justice, just balance, something clean, precise. I called Pierce the next morning. "File for fraud in addition to divorce," I said. "She used marital funds for personal gain." "You want to go that route?" he asked carefully. "It'll get ugly." "It's already ugly," I said. "Might as well make it honest." "You understand this means her name will go public," he said. "She's not just your ex. She's a business figure now. This could ruin her." "Good," I said. "Then maybe she'll finally understand what ruined feels like." He didn't argue. He just said he'd handle it discreetly. Over the next few days, word spread quietly through the firm and our social circle. People didn't say it to my face, but I could feel it. The mixture of sympathy and curiosity, like I was some tragic spectacle. I didn't care. What I cared about was the hearing date Pierce had scheduled. That was where everything would finally unravel. A week later, the letter came. She had countersued, claimed emotional cruelty, manipulation, invasion of privacy. Her lawyer accused me of digital stalking. I laughed out loud when I read it. The irony was almost poetic. The woman who staged an affair to test my fidelity now wanted to play the victim of intrusion. Still, it worked in her favor. On paper, it looked like a messy mutual destruction. Pierce wasn't worried. He said, "She's reaching. We'll shred this in court." "No," I said. "I want her shredded in public." He gave me a look. "You sure?" "Yes." She used my silence as a shield. Time to take it away. The court date was set for early winter. Snow lined the streets like salt, and the courthouse steps were slick with ice. I arrived early, suit pressed, calm as glass. She showed up 15 minutes late, wearing black, her expression carefully neutral. Our eyes met across the room. For a moment I almost remembered the woman I once loved. Then I saw the man sitting behind her, her new lawyer, younger, confident, smug, the kind of man who thought experience was optional if you had charm. She had a type. The hearing started quietly. Pierce spoke first, laying out the facts, the evidence, the financial inconsistencies. Then her side began their performance, painting me as obsessive, controlling, a man who couldn't accept that his wife needed independence. I let them talk. It's easy to sound righteous when no one's seen the receipts. When Pierce stood again, he didn't raise his voice. He just placed a folder on the desk and slid it toward the judge. "These," he said, "are verified communication records, emails, bank transfers, and GPS data from Mrs. Reynolds' accounts." My wife's lawyer objected, but Pierce overrode it smoothly. "This isn't speculation. It's data. It's truth." The judge flipped through the pages, his expression tightening. Then Pierce handed over one final item, a printed message thread. "Your Honor, this conversation details the affair and includes evidence of intentional deceit. It also references a third party who was directed to approach the plaintiff as part of an orchestrated manipulation." The courtroom fell silent. My wife's face drained of color. She knew exactly which message it was. The one where she told Claire to see if he bites. The words I'd never forget. The judge read for a long moment, then looked up. "Mrs. Reynolds, would you like to explain this?" She stammered something about context, misunderstanding, emotional distress. It didn't matter. The damage was done. I sat there, still and quiet, watching the empire of lies she built collapse under the weight of her own arrogance. When it was over, the judge ruled in my favor. I'd keep everything. House, business, assets. She got nothing but her name back, though I doubted she'd want to keep it after this. As we left the courtroom, she tried to approach me. "Please," she whispered, "don't make this worse than it is." I looked at her for a long time and said, You already did. I walked out into the cold, the wind biting against my face, and for the first time in years, I felt clean. Not happy, not whole, but clean. Like I had finally washed her out of my life. What I didn't expect was to see her again, months later, at the one place I thought she'd never dare to show up. My mother's grave.
It was early spring when I finally went to her grave. The grass hadn't grown back yet, just patches of damp soil and frost, and the flowers people had left were already wilting in the wind. For months I'd told myself I wouldn't come, that forgiveness wasn't something I owed to the dead. But time has a way of softening anger until it just becomes exhaustion. I parked a few yards away and walked slowly, carrying nothing but a single white rose. My mother's name was carved in granite, simple and elegant, the way she'd wanted it. I stood there for a while, just listening to the rustle of the trees, trying to decide if I had anything left to say to her. "You lied to me," I finally whispered. "But maybe you thought you were protecting me. I don't know anymore." My voice cracked, not from grief, but from something heavier, something that sits in the chest and refuses to leave. "You should have told me," I said. "You should have let me see the truth, no matter how ugly it was. Because lies don't spare people. They just delay the pain." I placed the rose on the headstone, brushed off a few leaves, and turned to leave. That's when I saw her, my ex-wife. She stood a few feet away, wearing a long coat, her hair tied back, no makeup this time. For a moment I thought maybe she was just a ghost from my own guilt, but then she took a step closer, clutching a small bouquet of lilies. "I didn't think you'd come," she said quietly. "I didn't think you would either." "She was good to me," she said. "Better than I deserved." I stared at her. "That's true." She didn't argue, just knelt beside the grave, placed her flowers, and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she stood, brushed the dirt off her knees, and faced me. "I wanted to tell you," she said, "about her, about everything, but I couldn't. She begged me not to. And you always listen when people beg, except when it matters." She took a slow breath. "I know you don't believe me, but I loved you." I almost laughed. "You loved control. You loved being wanted. There's a difference." "Maybe," she said softly, "but I still wake up thinking about what I did, about you, about how I ruined something good." "You didn't ruin something good. You exposed something weak. It was never as strong as I thought." She looked down, biting her lip like she wanted to say something else but couldn't find the words. "After the trial," she said, "I left the city. I've been working in another state, quietly. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm not the same person anymore." "That's good," I said. "Neither am I." For a while we just stood there in silence, two people tied together by memory, but separated by everything else. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain. "You know," she said finally, "your mother forgave me before she died. She told me she was sorry for keeping it from you. She said she hoped you'd understand one day." I closed my eyes, feeling something shift inside me. "Maybe I do," I said quietly, "but it doesn't change anything." "No," she agreed, "it doesn't." She turned to leave, then paused. "Do you ever miss me?" I looked at the gravestone between us. "I miss the version of you that never existed." Her eyes glistened, but she nodded. "That's fair." She started walking away, her figure fading into the mist that hung low over the field. I stayed a little longer, staring at the grave, thinking about everything that had been lost, not just my marriage or my family, but the simple belief that love could fix people. It can't. It only reveals them. I thought about my mother, how she'd spent her whole life trying to protect others, even when it meant destroying her own peace. Maybe that was love too, in its flawed, human way. As I turned to leave, I looked up at the sky, gray but calm, and whispered, "I forgive you." I didn't know if I was talking to my mother or to the ghost of the woman who had just walked away. Maybe both. On the drive back, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Silence, but the good kind. Not the heavy silence of anger, not the sharp silence of betrayal, just quiet, clean. I stopped by the river, the same spot where I'd stayed after everything fell apart. The motel was gone now, replaced by a new building, but the water still moved the same way, slow, endless, indifferent. I watched it for a while, thinking about how time wears down even the sharpest stones. Maybe it would do the same to me. When I got home, the house felt different. Not empty, just chill. I poured a drink, sat down at the table, and opened an old photo album. There were pictures of my mother smiling, of my wife back when her eyes still held warmth, of me before I learned how cruel love could be. I didn't close the book. I just let it sit open, like a wound that no longer hurts, but still remembers the cut. That night, I slept without dreams for the first time since it all began. And when morning came, I didn't think about her. Not the lies, not the whispers, not the what-ifs. Just the sound of rain outside and the quiet hum of a world that had moved on, finally taking me with it.